Hey everybody, as they said, I'm Nick Passalacqua, owner and managing director of Passalacqua Associates, where we represent people who've been charged with a crime or have been seriously injured that don't deserve to have their lives ruined as a result. And I've been asked to come speak to you about the culture I've developed in my firm. And we believe it's a culture that drives results. But more than that, your culture has to drive performance. It has to help retain your talent and help foster growth within your firm. But first, just out of curiosity, put a 1 in the chat if you're not an SMB member, but you have seen me speak at one of these events before. Anybody? Interesting, okay. So, why does culture matter? You know, it has to matter. When I started my career, I started at a firm in my area that would be considered a relatively large firm. I was attorney 6 or 7. After 2.5 years, after telling them at my interview I wanted to litigate, I had 1 trial and 1 hearing, and I was disliking much of what I was doing, and I left. Best decision I ever made in the worst possible way. I didn't strategize and say, hey, I'm gonna leave and start my own firm. I just left. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing next, but it's not this. Took a few months off. May 1st, 2013, opened up shop. Had no employees, not a single employee, for about 3.5 years, till February of 17. And having scaled the firm from that point to now, where we're at 14, maybe going on 16 over the next few months, I found that the challenge is battling turnover, inconsistency, lack of accountability, and overall happiness, which to me is paramount. The solution that I've found that was always kind of important to me was a culture-driven firm. But it has to be your culture. It can't be whatever I've developed as a culture for my firm. It has to be authentic to you, to your practice, to your demographic, to your personality. But a culture-driven firm, to me, is everything. So what we'll go over a little bit today is defining the right culture. Again, it has to be your culture. How you can utilize that culture to attract and retain top talent to your firm, because the game has changed. We've been doing a lot of hiring, and I was just speaking with someone last night about it. It hasn't changed in some ways, right? I mean, everybody still wants $1 million, but what you're seeing is even when you're paying grossly top of market, people are holding out and not accepting. They're holding out for a position and a culture that fits them, that speaks to their personality, to their work ethic. We're also going to talk about how you can align your culture for performance, to drive success. And we'll touch on how to stay conscious of your culture as you scale for growth. So, how do we define the culture? Well, your culture has to be more than perks and slogans. In order for culture to drive results, it must drive you. It has to be part of your why you do what you do. For me, it is, right? For me, this is my why, my kids. You have my stepdaughter, Vivian, then Leah in Orange, my youngest, Aaron, and Avery, my oldest. And I get it, it's kind of cliche, oh, his kids are his why, that's an easy answer. But if you know me, you know mine goes a little bit deeper than that. And November of 2017, my youngest, Leah, was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma cancer at 7 weeks old. And this is how I came in to see her in the hospital the next day. So for me, at this time we were 3 employees, maybe going on 4. I lived in the hospital for 45 days, lost 25 pounds, damn near lost my firm. And, it was a struggle. We were a single income household. I would work a couple hours in the morning, see my 2 other kids, at my parents or my in-laws. I would go change. I would run to the hospital an hour away so that my wife at the time and Leah, where Leah was, could sleep, shower, get some food, and I would stay with Leah. You know, what is hardest for me to reminisce about that time was how much Aaron and Avery were without mom and dad. And that's why I determined that if I was going to take the time to do anything, if I was going to take the time to build this firm, I sure as hell wasn't going to waste it. And I was going to enjoy what I was doing. And I tell my staff all the time, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'm likely not doing it. And don't get me wrong, we all have bad days and tough weeks, but all in all, I love what I do. I love going to work. I love the people I work with. And that's important to me. And it was a good wake-up call for me at the time. Because while we've grown rapidly, could we have grown faster? Probably. But I'm okay with that. Because I wouldn't want to the sacrifice of the time and memories I'm spending with my family. Right. So what else is I want my staff to know that that's important to me. You know, I'm an entrepreneur in the truest sense of the term because I'm buying back my time. I'm buying my freedom. And I want my staff to know that it's okay for them to be family-centric as well. And we've created a family-friendly work environment.
Yeah.
When you know, my staff, a lot of my staff have young kids. When they're sick or when the school's off, they can bring them in. We set them up in a conference room with a movie. It's a very family-friendly work environment. But this is why I say your culture has to be more than slogans and posters on a wall. It can't just be some cheeky saying that you think sounds good. It has to ingrain itself in your core values and shape the behavior within your firm. For example, the core values in my firm: community, communication, integrity, candor, and extreme ownership. And for just about all of these, for us, it's kind of an inside-outside dual meaning. And what do I mean by that? Well, community, for us, that means continuing to engage in, foster, and contribute to the culture we've built within our four walls. But it's also a reminder to be fully engaged with the community at large. Give back. We strive to have one volunteer day a month at my firm where everyone goes and volunteers and they have the rest of the day off. You know, we sponsor a lot of charitable organizations. You know, the community rallied behind my family when my daughter was sick, like I never would have imagined, and that's very important for me to pay that forward. And it's important for my staff to know that's important to me. Communication, same thing. Obviously, communication with the client, with the courts. But more so, we emphasize internal communication and across teams that may not deal with each other daily. Integrity speaks for itself, obviously. Candor we chose specifically over honesty because, in our opinion, candor has the extra connotation of directness. And we strive to be very direct in my office. And that kind of dovetails into the extreme ownership. Own your conduct, own your work product, good, bad, and otherwise. I embrace mistakes in my firm. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want the same person making the same mistake 6 times in a row. But if you make a mistake and own it, address it, correct it, think about how quickly your firm is now growing. Imagine that happens once a week, once a day. As long as you're not stepping over the errors and ignoring the issues, but addressing them head on and correcting them, your firm is growing rapidly, at least from an organizational standpoint. Now, aside from our core values, which obviously are the larger overriding core values, we have something we call our Big Four. And that's kind of our daily reminder to each other. And we send out our morning huddle with it. What are those? It's just do your job, treat people right, all-in attitude and all-out effort. And that's kind of our daily reminder that that's the expectation from everybody. But again, these things can't just be sayings. They have to align with your mission and vision and align with your daily actions. So how can you use your culture to attract and retain top talent? Well, we're in kind of a unique market. Our county is maybe 350,000 people. I know just about every attorney in a 40-mile radius, so we're fishing from a pretty small pond. So what do we do to try and set ourselves apart? Well, we lead with our culture. We share our vivid vision in the application process. We have our core values and our big four right in the job ad and the job postings. We ask people about them in our interviews. What do they mean to you? We tell people, look, we take what we do very seriously, but we don't take each other very seriously. We like to have a good time. I interview people like this, and I tell them, look, this is as dressed as I'll get if I'm not going to court. And again, this is my culture. This may not align with your firm. If you want people buttoned up in a suit and tie every day, that's your culture, by all means. Set that standard and that expectation and lead by example. But it must be authentic to you. And when I'm hiring at a very basic level, I need 4 things, and that's it. I need an attention to detail, and I need a work ethic. Those are 2 things I will not even try to teach. You either bring those to the table or you don't. After that, I need you to like what you do and like who you do it with. Because if you don't have both of those things, there's an issue. Why? Because if you like what you're doing, but you don't really like who you're doing it with, you're going to sit at your desk and crank work. And that may be great for the business, but you're probably not going to be that happy. And you're certainly not going to engage, contribute, and benefit from the culture within that office. So there'll always be a disconnect. What if you like who you work with, but don't really like the substantive work you're doing? Well, we have a problem there too. Why? Because now you're going to be roaming around, bending people's ear, distracting people from their work while you're not doing yours. Have a problem. So at a basic level, I just need those 4 things when I'm hiring. What else? Right? One problem we've seen is sourcing talent with litigation experience. Again, we do criminal defense and personal injury. You need to have robust trial attorneys. Not a lot of people have that experience anymore. What we're finding is people that go into public interest become lifers and rarely leave that office. So what have we done? We've gotten creative. In our area, we have Syracuse, Albany, and Cornell law schools about an hour to an hour and a half from us. So we have job postings and summer associate postings at each of those schools. What we do is bring in a summer associate or 2, gives us a great opportunity to see if they're a cultural fit, while also seeing that they have the attention to detail and the work ethic we need. It allows them to assess if they feel they're a good fit in our culture and they enjoy what we do, what they would be doing if we hired them, and if they would enjoy who they're working with. If it seems like a fit, we make them an offer for the following year. We then slide them into our criminal defense practice, where they get all their litigation experience. And we've set certain metrics and milestones that they have to achieve. Certain number of trials, certain number of autonomous cases handled. And as the personal injury side continues to scale and we need more coverage there, we slide them over. And we know they're trained up to our standards from a litigation standpoint. And we know that now we're coming correct. So all these adjusters, claims reps, defense attorneys know, oh, it's not just Nick or Ed who runs his department. It's every attorney on their bench will step into court and mess you up. And that's what you need if you're going to have a robust plaintiff's practice nowadays. But we had to get creative. We call it our farm system. Forward-facing, we call it our trial lawyer development program. We hire for culture, and we're happy to train for skill. But you have to be ready to fire to protect your culture as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But what other retention strategies can you implement that may work? Well, like I said, the trial lawyer development program that we have, that is a career development plan that we have in writing. Nobody wants to be hired on, and when they ask, well, what kind of advancement opportunities are there? And the answer is, well, we'll have a 90-day review, and then maybe a 6-month review, and we'll see how things are going, and then probably an annual review from there. That doesn't tell anybody anything. People want to see the path that they can take to get there. But be clear about it. Set those milestones for attorneys and paralegals, right? Set those KPIs and set the expectation that you expect those to be hit or to be on track to hit those when you're checking in. If you're a firm that has incentive programs, right? Bonuses and things like that, you have to align the incentives with actual firm success. What do I mean by that? There are great things that are great KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, metrics to track and manage. Does not mean those are the right things to be incentivized. An example, let's say you're a personal injury firm. A great KPI to track is number of demand packages out per week or month. Great KPI, we have that. Not a good thing to incentivize. Why? Let's say the number is 10 and your staff gets 8. Well, they're going to put out 2 crap packages to hit that incentive to get the bonus. Not a culture or reputation that your firm wants. But one step further in line with the culture, understand what incentivizes you may not incentivize me. What incentivizes me may not incentivize my employee. Not everybody wants a bonus in money. Some people would rather have an extra day off. Some people would rather have a gift. Some people would rather have a weekend trip. Take stock in what drives your employees, because if you're dangling a carrot and they're allergic to carrots, they're not going to move. So culture and results really can go hand in hand. Set those clear KPIs and accountability measures. The accountability measures are key. A simple example that we've implemented in my firm is during our daily huddles. So Monday through Thursday, 8:25, we have a team huddle. Everybody in the firm is there. Monday, myself and my office manager run point on it, and we go through the firm-wide scorecard on the overarching KPIs. Revenue for the previous week, revenue that we hit, number of leads, number of new retainers, review requests sent out, reviews in, higher level stuff like that. Tuesday, personal injury team reports on their prior week, cases closed, cases opened, revenue that they generated, exciting cases coming up to closure, things like that. Wednesday, sales and intake reports. They go more deep into the lead volume, the attribution, where those all came from. Thursday is the criminal team. And Friday is reserved for department meetings and our leadership team meeting. But what does that do? That creates an unconscious accountability measure. Every one of those teams is expected to know their numbers and to report on them. And they're expected to be hitting those numbers, because no one wants to look unprepared in front of the team, and no one wants to be reporting that they're failing to hit those numbers in front of the team. Very simple accountability measure that we've built in. What else can we do from a cultural standpoint within the firm to align with performance? In my opinion, at least part of your culture has to be a client-centric culture. Why? I mean, there's multiple reasons. You want to spend less on marketing? You want your marketing dollars to go further? Get your reviews up. Easiest way to get your reviews up is have an incredible client experience. What you make easier for your client, you make easier for you and your staff. And you have to be willing to embrace technology and innovation with that stuff. I mean, we have intake software. We have case management software. We have demand package software. We have medical chronology software. We have texting software for texting with our clients that uses our native phone number. We have, God, I know I'm forgetting probably a handful of them. We're onboarding a client portal app for the PI side later this year. But you have to also lean into those things and see them as an investment, not an expense. And you also need to think outside the box from just what they're selling you. Just about every piece of software and technology that we've invested in, by the time we're onboarding it, I've come up with 3 additional ways to use it outside of what they're selling me on, increasing my ROI, right? But make it easier for your client. It makes it easier for you. Another quick example, we streamlined our onboarding. In our criminal side, we had a lot of clients, understandably nervous, calling in for updates, calling in to speak to their attorney, things like that. Now, client retains, our office manager assigns an attorney paralegal team. Within 24 hours, paralegal sends a welcome email outlining the high-level sequence of events or procedure they can expect. It then goes into outlining our communication policy, part of which says, hey, we know you might have questions, but understand we're very busy. If you cold call into us, there's no guarantee you're going to speak with an attorney or a paralegal, but we can get you scheduled for a call. What's one step further we went? Any new criminal client that retains us, the assigned attorney must make telephone contact with that client within 48 hours. This has cut down on the call-ins by probably 90%, making it easier for my staff to do their job. Right? The client portal app for PI. How many times, if you're in PI, are you waiting for an update from your client about their last medical appointment? Right? You're calling, playing phone tag, etc. This app gives them a reminder. Hey, you got an appointment tomorrow. Hey, you've got an appointment in 2 hours. 2 hours after the appointment, it nudges them. How'd the appointment go? Did you schedule another one? Put it in here. Were you discharged from treatment? Click right here. You have a receipt, take a picture, upload it to us right there. I mean, how many times you've been waiting and they tell you 4 months later, oh, I was discharged from treatment. I didn't tell you that? It's like, it could have been settled already, right? What makes it easier for the client makes it easier for you and your staff. But how do we stay conscious of our culture as we scale and grow? Your culture has to be intentional. It has to be deliberate. There's nothing in our businesses that should be set it and forget it, right? Culture probably being the number one that cannot be. So you have to be conscious of that. Suppose you're opening a second location. Could be a different geographic location entirely. Could be an entirely new set of staff. You have to be conscious of setting those expectations, leading by example, letting those core values and your culture shape your behaviors within the office. As you scale, you have to learn to delegate leadership without losing those values. And this can be very difficult. We were just talking about it because inherently you want to think your best attorneys would make your best leaders. And I'll tell you from experience, that's almost never the case. So you have to learn to identify those unique leadership skills that align with your culture and values and promote on that. Delegate leadership on those skills. You have to be willing to balance tradition of the profession, of your culture, with innovation, as we've said. We've used that to attract top talent. We just brought in a super high-level paralegal out of New York City. We're about 4 hours from New York. And she's worked at very big personal injury firms, Duffy and Duffy and the like. And during her interview, she was aghast at how much technology we've embraced. I think one of her comments was, wait a minute, I don't have to spend 9 hours in discovery review and, putting medical chronologies together and doing this demand package And my answer was no. You can upload thousands of pages, transcripts, medicals, everything. Submit it. You'll have a 28-page demand package complete in about 7 days. Then obviously we review it and scour it for accuracy. Again, nothing is set it and forget it. That caused her to leave a very prominent personal injury firm in New York City to join us. And what you're doing while building this culture, while leading with your core values, is you're unconsciously creating a self-sustaining firm. Take it way back to the beginning. If people like what they do and they like who they do it with, you already know they have an attention to detail and a work ethic. You're embracing technology and innovation that makes their job easier so they can have a higher capacity. You can have a higher caseload with a smaller staff, decreasing your labor cost ratios, increasing your profitability. That is a firm that's going to run itself. Don't get me wrong, you're going to have issues and headaches here and there, but those people are going to perform the job you're hiring them to perform. They're going to work for you because they enjoy it, because you're making it easier than they've ever known it to be, and more fun. So just to recap, again, your culture has to be intentional. A culture where you're the answer to every fire is simply not sustainable, and it's not enjoyable. Let's be honest. Wave at me if you like being the answer to every fire that arises in your firm. If you wave, then we got to talk. That's wild, right? It's not sustainable and it's not enjoyable. You have to hire and train to reinforce your culture. Again, it being deliberate and intentional. But again, you have to be willing to fire even really good employees if they're toxic for your culture. I've had to do it. And it is one of the most difficult terminations you'll ever make. I mean, I've had to let go of people that were great employees, great attention to detail, great work ethic, did everything they were asked, when they were asked, spit out great work product, but they were an absolute cancer within my firm. And in case you didn't know, I don't like cancer very much. And so I cut them out quick. And you have to be willing to do the same. It's a difficult choice, but it's for the best interests of your firm. Again, remember to align your incentives to drive performance. Tie it to actual success in your firm, revenue generated. If it's intake, cases signed, it turns into revenue, right? Conversion ratio, cases closed, cases open, things that move the needle, not simple KPIs. Again, could be a great metric to track and manage, does not mean it's a great metric to incentivize. Know the difference. Make sure you align your incentives with what drives your employees. Be conscious of scaling without losing your identity and the identity of your firm. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot harder for me to maintain the culture I want with 14 people than it was with 4. But it is so much more robust and rewarding culture with 14 than it was with 4. So just remember, your culture is and should be your competitive advantage, so long as it's authentic to you. If not, people will see right through it and they won't buy in. If you don't believe what you're selling, you can't expect your staff to. And look, the median age in my county of attorney is probably 63 to 65. I can feel people looking down their nose at me when I'm at events or when I'm out in public with this attire, that I'm not in a suit. I don't care. This is the culture I want. I'm a firm believer that people do better work if they're comfortable, not if they're dressed fancy. And I tell my clients all the time, look, pardon the informality, I don't think a $3,000 suit makes me a better lawyer. And all of our clients have embraced that. Most have told me they agree. But do what's authentic to you, or your staff won't buy in and your clients certainly won't. But be deliberate, be authentic, and leverage it to your advantage. It is your competitive advantage in this market. So I thank you for my time and your attention. Hopefully you got something, and go have fun, man. Happiness to me is the most important thing. Enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy who you're doing it with. That's the most important. If you're enjoying it, the profit will follow.